Hello and welcome to the Inform Me Talking Small Business webinar. Inform Me is the small business charity arm of AAT, the Association of Accounting Technicians, and today we've got a very AAT themed webinar. So I'm here with Will and Julie. Will is my co-host. He's director of Realise Finance. I'm the other host. I'm Sophie. I'm editor of Freelance magazine, and our guest today is another amazing finance professional and AAT member, Julie Spence, who I've been lucky enough to interview for some stuff we've been doing on AAT recently, and I know this is going to be amazing. Julie is a fully qualified bookkeeper, soon to be accountant. She, in just a few years, has progressed from working as an accounts junior for a small accounting firm and starting her AAT level 2 to moving to a large corporate and now setting up her own practice while she's completing her level 4. She's on a mission to break down the barriers of entry for both passionate individuals who wish to become bookkeepers or accountants and business owners who deserve solid support throughout their business journey. She has a North Star vision of transforming her practice into an academy to help provide a UK talent pool of rising stars in the accounting industry. And I know we're probably going to get on to touching onto that later. The things that we're going to be covering in today's webinar, so we're going to be talking about things to do from day one of setting up your startup, which Julie obviously has first-hand experience, but also as an accounting professional. Her and Will in particular are going to be talking about financials for running your own business, so tax, cash, profit. I'm going to be talking about how to discover the value that you bring and utilising all available resources to you, like funding, networking, social media and referral when you've got your startup. And Will and Julie are going to be talking about the making tax digital change as well. So thank you so much to Julie for joining us as our guest today. And really I just wanted to start by, if you could take us on a bit of this journey, like it's, been amazingly quick from you starting your level 2 and, we've talked about it recently, but yeah, please tell us how you started on AAT, how you decided to make that part of your career journey.
Of course. Well, firstly, thank you so much, both Sophie and Will, for such a lovely introduction and for inviting me here today. My story was a bit unconventional in the sense of I left school when I was 16. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I thought that I was going to either be an artist or an actress. And that eventually transpired very quickly that is not what was going to happen. I needed to make money in order to support my family. So my mum suggested to me that I looked into business administration apprenticeships. Fast forward a few years, I did my business administration apprenticeship. I had ventured into many different industries such as construction, hospitality, facilities management, gaining a lot of experience in finance roles, payroll roles, so a lot of heavy exposure to the finance world already. But I felt lost and I felt like I didn't know what path I was going on. So my partner had suggested that I go back to higher education. I didn't even know that I could do that. And so I got curious and I found out about the Open University. I enrolled for a business management access course. And within 36 weeks of doing this access course, I fell in love with accounts. And from that, I reached out to a careers advisor who told me all about AAT. And again, my heart was full. I fell in love and I decided to start my journey on becoming an accountant. Got some experience within a practice. Because I had no prior experience, I literally went round the doors of different firms, handing my CV in, telling them how passionate I was, telling them the supporting evidence behind that I had did all the online accounting software certifications and that I was the real deal and that they could trust that I really wanted this. And luckily enough, a small firm gave me an opportunity. Now, From there, I ended up in a medium-sized firm, and then I ended up in a large corporate firm that was actually a top 35 firm in Glasgow. And I started to notice that there was an area where I felt small business owners weren't getting the service that they potentially should have been getting, and a very high associated fee with what they were getting. I didn't agree with that, and I knew that there could be a different way that things could be done. I also seen a lot of students come in really eager to learn, but unfortunately they lost their confidence because they weren't getting adequate support and training. And again, something just didn't sit right in with me. So I decided, do you know what? I've got my bookkeeping's license now. I'm going to go and I'm going to try and change this narrative. So here I am.
I can see Will nodding along a lot,
Nice.
and I feel like you've got lots in common. I'm going to ask you a couple more questions, and I'm going to let you two have a bit of a chat as well. I've just got to say, before you even started talking today, Emma Louise in the chat put Julie as a queen. So you obviously have a massive impact in the industry, and you've done that so quickly. So one of my first questions was going to be if you could put kind of your acceleration down to kind of one thing from level 2 to level 4, and going from that kind of knocking on doors to get that work experience to going to a larger firm and then setting up your own practice. Like what would you put that down to? I mean, determination, obviously, but
yeah, well, there's that, and passion, because I can be very self-critical of myself, and my partner is my biggest cheerleader, and he believes in me, and I want to be able to believe in myself too, and I know that I can do this. So yeah, there's a driver there, and because of what I have seen, I think in larger corporations, I've got that fuel to want to make a change. And
you
I
sort of hold that front and centre.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And related to that, is there any kind of advice you would give yourself, when you started day one, level 2, or day one of kind of your accounting journey? What would you tell yourself that would have saved yourself? I mean, I say saved yourself any time or stress. I don't know if you could have saved yourself any more time, the pace you've been moving. But yeah, what would you tell yourself on day one now?
The real life scenarios are completely different to what you study, and that's okay. What you study is the foundations, and you will utilise that in working in accountancy, but knowing that it's okay not to know everything and ask questions. There's no wrong answer, like you have to be brave enough to ask questions in order to get the correct answers to move forward. Our industry is changing so rapidly that we just can't know it all, and that's okay. And if I had known that back then, little Julie going into her first practice, I would have felt so much more comfort in that. Yeah,
I think it's a good time to hand over to Will, as you two have both,
I'm itching
both
to. There's so much I want to ask.
Amazing, startups in the finance industry. So yeah, let me sit back and listen to the pros.
Your job is done, yeah. So Julie, everything you're saying resonates so well with me. The way you say that you were in a practice, you've learned, you did the AAT in a practice, and you've got that hands-on experience is amazing, because I say the things you learn in practice are things, even though the pay is sometimes lower, are things that carry so well into what you're doing now and what I do, and you couldn't do it without. My thing when I was in practice, I didn't get much exposure to clients. So it was always a real struggle to me that I was able to do the accountancy, but I didn't get any exposure kind of to clients or actually then real world situations. So I'm intrigued. Obviously, you're working with business owners. What's something that you're finding you're trying to advise business owners on? Maybe something that you learned, or are you finding that transition quite kind of difficult to work with business owners, or is it natural for you?
So I always see it as we're dealing with humans, and when I worked in practice, I was very hands-on. I actually would pick up the phone to clients, which was very unheard of, and some firms didn't necessarily like that, but it meant that I was more personable to them and they could trust me. Accounting is such a delicate subject, and the people that you're working with have to truly trust who you are as a person in order to open up and share, what their plans are with their business. So I knew kind of from day one that I just wanted to be myself, and I know that I want to help people. And if I can just express that to business owners, they feel a bit more relaxed, because they know that they can come to me and ask questions, and that I'm not going to judge them, and I'm not going to, push them away from asking something about, tax on a specific item that they've got or the VAT implication on that. I want to sit with them and go, no, it's not that, but this is why it's not that, and get them to understand too.
And you keep it simple rather than kind of the really complicated jargon that the big firms use. So it's translating as such. Yeah, which is great. And you build a relationship with clients, which is, again, exactly what I do. And that kind of thing builds you the really good experience and able to give back to your clients really well. So when you're working with these kind of new entrepreneurs, and I assume some business owners have been going for a little bit of time, what's the biggest financial mistake you see them potentially making sometimes?
Not setting up a separate bank account from day one. I
Yeah.
mean, you know that yourself well. It causes so much anxiety for us as the accountant, but for them too long term, because things get messy when you're not splitting things. And even from like a mindset perspective, if you go into your business in day one with that separate bank account, you've got the clear distinction between your personal life and your business life, and it just makes things more.
It's easier for yourself and for the accountant, and you can plan. It can pull into software. There's so many benefits, and you can get them for free. So it's like it's a why not? So,
and on top of that as well, something else that I see that I personally think more people need to look into when they first go into their business is business insurance. So many people miss that, and it's something that's really important. Even if you've got a limited company, okay, you've got that limited liability, but you need that additional, protection there and security piece.
And it's good that you're advising them kind of things, because it's in our onboarding. So the first thing we say, if we've set someone's company up, the next 2 steps are literally bank account, insurance, and then it's relevant things for your industry, because every business is different. But them 2 things are your first 2 things.
As well, so it's a no-brainer.
20% off almost. Why not? So when you're seeing people kind of structuring their businesses and their finances, are you advising on kind of just one bank account, or are you looking for a mix of business bank accounts to handle maybe tax and things, or have you got a kind of view on that?
If we have clients that have a bank account that can handle, savings pots, there's some bank providers that have virtual saving pots. We'll get them to split that into all the different VAT elements, so they can start planning and saving for their taxes as they go on month when we're doing their bookkeeping.
Amazing.
And that just makes things so much better for them, because they know that that's not necessarily their money, and it's all saved away in this little pot. So when it comes to pay it, they don't need to stress.
If we get the chance to work with business owners and try and tell them that, say it's £120, that £20 VAT, if they can go away, they know how much their business has to trade. And that part of advice is probably hands down the biggest piece we can do. The problem is, if you pick up a client 3-4 years into their journey, that can be a really hard conversation if it hasn't been had with the previous accountant. So it's good that you're doing the good work on that and able to get that across. So if I want to test you a little bit now, test your knowledge, kind of push it out and see. Big terms in accountancy, obviously across AAT, if you're learning accountancy, or if you're a kind of business owner like yourself and me and Sophie, trying to obviously understand different terms in business that you come across. Big ones to me are cash flow, profit, and kind of a bit of tax planning. Could you probably explain the difference between cash flow and profit, so why the money in the bank isn't what your profit is, and then we can look at tax planning from that?
So your cash flow basically is your money that's coming in versus your money that's coming out, and the surplus money that's available is obviously what's left after the money's coming in, coming out. Profit is your incomes less your expenses, and in accounting we prepare accounts under a method that's called accruals basis, which means that income isn't recognised until it's earned, and costs aren't recognised until they're actually incurred, and that's where you get the difference from. You need both in business. I'm a big believer of, you can have a very profitable business and that's fantastic, but if you don't have sufficient cash reserve there, then you're not going to be able to pay yourself. If you want to take a dividend out, you've got that retained earning, but you don't have the cash. You need both
to be able to run. Yeah, it's something you learn kind of at AAT and in your studies and practice, but I didn't really come across it at the start of my business, even in the first year, because I was picking up new clients, but you don't really experience cash flow problems that soon, because cash comes in. It comes around when the tax comes around or the VAT's been mismanaged. Yeah. So it's something I started to learn probably 2-3 years into my business, and now I'm able to kind of be like, well, actually there is this big difference and it's so important. But that's one of them real world experiences.
That's where your kind of tax planning comes into place as well, isn't it? Because tax planning is obviously, it's utilising legal methods to reduce your tax liability, but it's also that element of planning and saving and being proactive rather than being reactive. if that makes sense.
And that's why having an accountant like yourself is so important. And
Yeah.
I mean, we always go on the thing that a price for having an accountant is based on a job, so you might as well have that conversation with the accountant early doors, which is, I assume, a similar approach that you're taking with how the modern accountancy world is.
100%. Yeah.
Amazing. No, absolutely love that. So when you're meeting a business owner for the first time, obviously a lot of the time when I find them, they either love doing the job, maybe they're a coffee shop owner and they love running it, they love having clients, they love the marketing. Marketing's fun and really engaging, that they're able to make the pretty posts and make it all really nice. But they hate the finance. Everyone seems to hate the numbers. They seem to just not enjoy the maths part or the kind of accounting. They just want to pass it to the accountant.
Yeah.
How do you kind of deal with them kind of clients and help them to kind of understand their finances? What's your kind of approach to that?
I feel like Will's just stealing lots of ideas off you today, Julie.
Yeah, tell me, so I'll just write it down at the same time.
I think the first conversation piece that has to happen with your client is to make them recognise the fact that that's okay that they don't know, because we're not taught it in education. So how can they possibly understand and interpret their own business finances if we're not taught? And it's, it's that human element of making them feel comfortable and explaining it in a way that they understand, and being very open door policy for any questions that they have. It's just really, really important for them. And don't overwhelm them either. Like, make them understand that they can make this fun. And no handing records in when your bookkeeper's asking, can I get copies of your bank statements and copies of your invoices?
Oh no.
You're like, oh no thanks, and you're trailing through your handbag. But make it fun. Have like a little checklist of, I'm going to get these documents uploaded today, and once I've done that, I can go and have a cup of tea and a biscuit,
I like that little reward for sending your invoice to your accountant. Maybe we should encourage that as well. That sounds quite a good idea. So maybe we'll steal your ideas. No, I like it. So I don't want to steal the limelight too much. So if there's anything you want to ask Sophie, I could talk about accountancy back and forth forever because I love it.
Well, I'll just say there's a lot of hard resonate for me as a business owner as well, and as someone who kind of writes, a magazine that gives small business owners advice. But just from my personal journey, I didn't have insurance for years because I was like, I'm a limited company, it's fine, and then realized that business insurance wasn't just about kind of protecting you against things, but also it's a mindset thing in terms of giving you the confidence that, and having those processes in place and seeing yourself as a business and knowing that there is backup there. And so I think that business insurance was definitely a lesson that I learned quite late on. And the same with the kind of saving the tax. I have one business that has a bank account with the pots, or, you kind of often have like a savings account, but the problem I find is like, I don't want all the money to sit in my current account anyway. So I kind of save it into the savings, but then I don't have a separate pot for the tax. Yeah. So it's still kind of like the money is there, but it still kind of comes as a bit of a shock because I'm not actually putting the right amount aside.
Yeah.
And, on that as well, I think it's really smart, not just from a perspective of you've got, you obviously have to pay this bill, so you're saving the money for the bill. But otherwise, it was like you were saying about being proactive, not reactive. You're kind of working out your accounts for stuff that happened, 12 or more months ago. And from a cash flow perspective, that is just a nightmare for a business owner to be kind of looking at your accounts 12 months later. Like, we want to know, you almost want to be looking ahead, right? About, do I have enough cash flow in 3 months' time? Not did I have enough cash flow 15 months ago? Yeah. So, I think just things like this kind of monthly, getting used to for a start, monthly putting that tax aside is a way to really start being proactive. So I think that, it's great as accountants if you can be advising your clients this, as opposed to going, in January or wherever, okay, we need your accounts now, and then here's your bill. Just as a business owner, that was kind of really resonating with me.
We tend to, we'll get our clients to run an debtors report every month as well, from a credit control perspective, because I think a lot of small business owners, they think that it's only the large companies that need to be really hands-on with their credit control, that is not the case. You have worked extremely hard for that money, and if somebody isn't paying you in time, you need to be on top of that and chasing that up. And yes, it's completely uncomfortable when you first start, but your clients should respect you and vice versa. So reaching out and saying to them, hey, this hasn't been paid, and just following up on that. It's your cash flow is so critical in your business when you first start out that you need to be comfortable with doing these things.
Absolutely. And again, it's a mindset thing, isn't it? And,
Yeah.
I think I interviewed Will, he was the first guest on this webinar, and what really impressed me about him was that he almost kind of went into everything with like, well, why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't I kind of go out and tell people that I've set up this business and ask people, and get my clients and do this? And I think, actually it's a bit of a positioning thing, because if you were, I've tried and explained it to freelancers, like if you were a restaurant, you wouldn't be having the money conversation like a month later. You would be upfront about your pricing. You wouldn't kind of say, oh, like, here's your invoice. Is it okay if you pay me in like a month? Or if people went like, oh, actually, I'm only going to pay you like £10 for that omelette, like not £12 for that omelette. You wouldn't be like, oh, okay. So, I just think actually having the money conversation up front only positions you as being more professional, and it throws up any red flags really quickly if people are not willing to have it. And it's business. If other people are in business and they don't want to like pay you on time, then that's not people that I don't think you should be working with.
It helps filter down your ideal client, right?
But that is really hard at the start. I don't know if you found this, Julie, but my biggest problem at the start was I had 0 clients, and I did a bit of subcontractor work on the side. So the hardest part for me was I was like, yeah, and you sound like you come from a very similar situation, which I absolutely love. But I probably made a mistake as such, which we kind of talk about. But I was like, I will take work in for kind of as cheap as possible and try and get work in. And it does work. But I think what you're saying, Sophie, is really important, that if you have them conversations from the start, you can really position yourself well and be able to say no to things that it might seem like you're at a loss at that point. But actually, if you hold that out with every single client, overall, you'll come up on a gain. And I think that's probably some really good advice.
I think it's just so common, and maybe something that everyone almost needs to go through is starting off too cheap. You only learn from doing it, even if that is the advice you're giving people. You have to live those mistakes yourself, and it's just about not making the same mistakes again, basically. And I think that everyone kind of, the other really hard thing to do is have a conversation with yourself after a year or two and go, 80% of my business is, of the best businesses coming from 20% of my clients, who do I need to get rid of? Or, having a conversation with people about, actually this is the value I'm delivering for you, or these are the things that I'm doing so that the prices are going up. And I think most people will start off too cheap. It's a confidence thing, and don't realise that that's.
Are you? So you're still there. It's just Sophie.
That they need to do that.
Yeah, I can pick up. I'm sure she'll be back any minute. But she'll be back. So I think she's just picking up on kind of how important it is to have them processes in place. And with us, we when we speak to clients from the very start, I tell them their business is pretty much like Tesco or like Apple or something as big as that, and you are separate. You are a director, employee of your business, and you have to run that business as big as it could possibly be, versus then as you that an employee of the business. So I assume you're giving similar kind of advice, and it's a really good kind of way to talk.
Through, like checking in your business finances, where you're sitting, how much money are you turning over versus your costs, and comparing that,
margins and
comparing that month on month. It's like having a health check. Your regular doctor's appointment, you wouldn't miss that. So why do we feel that we don't need?
Why is finance pushed so far back when all the others? And it's just a learning kind of curve. And with Zero kind of QuickBooks nowadays, all the kind of softwares, you can have access to this for pretty much close to enough for £30 a month, which at them kind of levels, once you know to run an age debtors report, like you said, you're laughing because that just gives you a list of who owes you money at any point. That's incredible. If you look back 20 years, could that be done? No. So it's like a cheap kind of cost. So really, really important. So obviously that's one thing you say that business owners should be looking for when reviewing their financials. Is there anything else you kind of say to look out for? So age debtors being one. Is there anything else you kind of advising
Well,
on?
if you run a profit and loss report, you're wanting to obviously be checking that, as I said, against either the previous month or the previous year. Figure out, am I potentially overspending in a certain area? If so, do I need to maybe think about bringing in a budget just to monitor that? If you've made a loss, you want to be figuring out, where's my break-even point? How much sales do I need to make in order to get to that break-even point? How much do I need to make until I've made a profit that I'm aiming for? And it's always just having that conversation piece with your
Yeah.
client and figuring out, are they on track for what their goals are? We don't get into business, to work 24 hours a day. We get into business because we have personal goals
It
associated.
has to be for a passion, doesn't it? There's so many business owners I meet, and the ones that do well is because they really love it. Like my reason I do what I do is I love working with clients. I
Yeah,
love the look on someone's face when I can either get their tax bill down,
yeah,
or they can, excuse the pun, but realize their kind of business financials. That's what we say a lot of the time.
yeah.
And yeah, actually, on top of that, I mean, while we're there, I know we touched on it very briefly just when I first met you, but I love the business name. So
Oh, thank
was it?
you.
Yeah, of course. And I just thought, because I said we go a lot on the realize your business financials or realize your business's potential. We
I
we
love
kind
that.
of play on them words, but yours with the no expense, you're going everywhere, I imagine, with no expense spared. Or it's just really clever with your last name. So do
Well,
you want to tell us a little bit of a story while we're
yeah.
waiting on Sophie? Maybe a little story about that.
I mean, thank you so much, Phil, but I cannot take credit for my name. If I had it my way, the business was going to be called Fairy Tale Finances, which HMRC just would not have liked that. So I'm very glad that I listened to my father-in-law, because he said to me, listen, you want to leave a legacy for your father. Obviously,
Mhm.
I'm quite traditional. When I get married, I want to take my partner's name.
Okay.
So it was just a way for me to leave something for my dad. And it's fun.
Yeah, I love it. No, absolutely love it. Very occasionally, from time to time, we actually, I love the creative side, so we do get involved when clients are like, I can't come up with a name, so
Yeah.
we try and give that extra kind of value sometimes. And I don't know if you've ever come across that, but I'm intrigued if you do get involved with clients and trying to find the unique value that they kind of bring from their business, or is it just you just do the numbers, or do you actually try and find ways they can help?
No, so I love understanding my clients. I'm a
The
big
extra
believer
bits.
of the whole know your client piece. And the one thing that I would say is you really need to hone in on your uniqueness, because your USP is you. You need to become the storyteller of your business. You don't have to attach your photo to the business if you don't want to. That's completely fine. But you have to be, showing up, expressing what your story is, what your why is for having your business, and also what pain point are you solving for your ideal client. So it's just, having that bit of additional information about who it is that you want to serve really,
Hmm.
really helps. It's
Yeah.
definitely something that we do
You
ourselves.
do. Do
Yeah.
you, do you have a niche out of interest there? I know you just mentioned on the end kind of a target of who you want to sell to. So we don't. We kind of go down a traditional accountancy route where we work with as many owners as possible, and we like the small businesses. But do you have a certain niche? And hi, Sophie, you're
I'm
back.
so sorry, believe it or I had a power cut. Apparently it's 1985. It's our second power cut of the day. Yeah, apologies for
Oh
just this.
no.
I'm sure I froze and then I was like, all the lights went off and it still
Yeah,
took me
we
about
just sat
five
in
minutes to
silence
work
and
out.
waited for you. Yeah. No.
Sorry, I won't interrupt. Please go on.
No, we're chatting about if we have different business niches. So personally, we don't really have a specific niche. We cater to all small to medium-sized businesses, but
Cool.
what we do market for, and we're quite strategic in our marketing, is speaking to other students, because our North Star mission is to obviously eventually, hopefully, have an accountancy academy. And we want students who are learning AAT to see that we potentially could have a solution for them for getting a job and getting that correct support and correct training. So
I
that's
love that. Yeah, no, that's really, really cool. We the person I hired, so Tori, she went to the same college I went to, and she's an apprentice who was just completing her level 4. So that full circle, obviously you're taking it where you're going to have a big group of students by the sound of it, which is amazing. So if you get to, yeah, really hats off to you, that'd be really cool, and definitely giving back to the community in a
yeah,
great way.
yeah.
So you touched on, obviously just before you touched on like stories and how storytelling is really important. we love that as well in our own kind of marketing, is that if we can tell a kind of client testimonial or something, it shows that we are actually doing the work and we're not just bringing it up from what we've learned. It's not fake. You got kind of a success story of where financial planning's really worked for you, one you kind of go back to, or do you have a number of different, I'm sure you have loads, but is there one you can kind of think of?
We had a client come to us, they had voluntarily registered themselves for VAT, which we were like, fantastic. Yeah, they're really keen. They must have a basic understanding of what that then means. But it transpired quite quickly that they thought that they had to register for VAT, and they had put themselves on an annual scheme, which if you know yourself well, annual scheme.
Red flag and lots of
explain that to me, please.
So an annual scheme for VAT is basically, rather than paying in quarterly installments, handing over, what your VAT liability is each quarter, you go the full year and then pay over.
So is that just from like tracking it perspective, it just become like in terms
it can leave you blind?
Yeah,
very, very quickly. It wouldn't be a good place to be.
Yeah. And with this particular client, it was okay for them to be on the annual scheme, but what they didn't understand was that their customer base was actually international B2B, which meant that their sales didn't attract UK VAT. And when they had initially registered themselves, HMRC asked the question, how much are you expecting to turn over in taxable income? And then they'll estimate the amount and you have to pay that. And I believe it's 2 installments, but don't quote me on that. Well,
yeah, it's not even something we come across very often. So your knowledge would probably be better than ours, because you've come across, it's not in 5 years annual VAT. I've heard like the stories of it, but never actually come across a client with it. But
so they basically paid a very large installment up front to cover this, expected liability. But because they weren't going to have a liability, they were actually a refunder, we were able to take that over, contact HMRC, get that money that they paid up front back, and moving forward, they are a refunder. So all their business expenses that attract VAT, they can reclaim back and recover. We are in talks now about getting that onto a quarterly scheme for cash flow perspective, because it would be much better that coming in.
It would make a lot more sense, wouldn't it, for that kind of situation? But it's great you were able to step in and kind of help them in that, because if they hadn't have got the advice, who knows? Well, they'd have paid probably 2 amounts. They'd have been that could have been a lot of money.
To their sales and
exactly. Well, it could have been could have been a nightmare, and that's the kind of thing that can close a business, even, and it's so small, but little change, literally ticking a box on zero, make massive difference. So Sophie, do you want to go back to you? Because obviously I took over from where you were.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
But if it's something you were kind of getting towards.
Well, I don't know what you've asked now as well, so I'm going in blind. But
I spoke about the name. Yeah, I spoke about the business name a little bit. So you missed that. Yeah, I know. I stole that one, but not too much more.
Ask that one.
No, I did want you to ask that one. I'll have to get the lowdown later. I could watch back the recording. I was just going to ask you a little bit more about kind of your startup journey, and as someone who didn't think they would be doing AAT, let alone didn't see yourself starting up your own business, if I'm right, and now you've got this kind of North Star vision of the academy, which is amazing. But just can you tell us a bit more about, for people out there who might be studying AAT and just would never, aren't considering at this point that they might start up their own practice one day. What did that kind of look like for you, and how did that kind of transition occur? I know you've talked a little bit about you kind of started in a small one and then went to corporate, but please tell us a little bit more about that.
I think for me it was just I had witnessed too much being in corporate that I had built such a good relationship with clients that I could see that they were really frustrated, they didn't feel supported, and it just ignited something in me where I knew that I had something to bring, and I knew that I was relatively good at what I did as well, that I thought, if I don't try now, I'm never going to. So it was a very big self-belief piece that I went through. And don't get me wrong, there's days where I still experience imposter syndrome and I have to, work through that. But it's recognizing that you have the potential in you. You just need to believe in yourself. And ask the right questions, get the exposure, and surround yourself with people that genuinely want to see you succeed. Because so many people in our industry, it's a fantastic community, and everybody just wants to help each other. Collaboration over competition.
And you
Amazing.
both had
Yeah,
a
I love
similar
that.
journey in terms of working for other companies, getting that experience, which I suppose, even though the catalyst for you both starting your own practices was kind of seeing that you felt like you could do it better in ways and differently, that actually that experience, has been invaluable. If and not only because you recognize how you could do it differently, but also because you obviously have the experience of setting up a business. And I suppose that as an accounting professional setting up your own practice, you have the accounting knowledge, which so many other people going into business don't have. And I suppose, like, I was a marketer, so I felt like, oh, at least I have the marketing part of the business, which again, I kind of, you still make those mistakes though, don't you? Like you say, you still start too cheap and you still, kind of make the mistakes that you give other people. But then in a way, that makes your advice so much more valuable because it's also coming from a place of living it.
Yeah.
I'm
a big believer, Sophie, of, fail fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. I'm like, don't procrastinate over like planning and researching. Learn by doing, or learn by making mistakes. And actually, it can make you learn very quickly like what you don't want to do as well. So I think people kind of feel like, oh, research, and then I'll be able to take this perfect path. But actually, if you kind of give up on something straight away because you start trying it and you're like, I really don't like this, and actually this is why I don't like it, that's really helpful because you can then move on to something else with that knowledge. But I think I heard something once that was like, you wouldn't learn how to play tennis by reading a book about learning how to play tennis, and it applies. I think the same applies to business, doesn't it? But yeah, I think it's really cool to have an accountant who's running their own business because they're living, starting up your own business as well. So yeah, and we were talking earlier about setting up your own bank account and getting insurance and getting all this advice off your accountant, but actually, what we see in our kind of freelance community is sort of not convincing people, but lots of people don't have an accountant. And I would almost say that, before, that's kind of the number one advice, like, unless you're really, really into doing your finances, but even still, to get that kind of professional and that second pair of eyes and everything like that. But I think so many people kind of try and do it themselves and stress themselves out with it. And actually, just one piece of advice will probably save you the money that you're spending on your accountant.
I mean, the return on your investment when you invest in a professional, you're never going to regret that. Working with somebody, that as we've spoken about, can communicate in a way that you actually understand. You shouldn't be working with somebody and then leaving that chat and being even more confused about your own finances. You should feel empowered, and that's the difference, is making sure that you're working with, if you are going to invest in a professional, make sure it's with somebody that understands you and really wants to support you, rather than somebody who you maybe don't hear from until the end of the year, and
I hear that all the time. We get some good clients because of that.
And say, there you go, I bet you could have done X, Y, and Z, but it's too late now. So
in that sense, a bit of a difficult question, I suppose, but like, how do you make sure you don't just like massively over deliver? Like, do you have like really set processes, or do you have set packages, or is that something that you would look to put in place in terms of the amount of support that you give a business? Because obviously you have to deliver, company accounts and tax returns and things like that. But how do you not get too involved in some respects?
It is a hard one, and it's something that I'll hold my hands up to. I do get very involved, and then I kind of look back and go, oh, that fee's not quite reflecting that value add there. But I care. I do care, and to me, I think that means more than, we want to be making sure that we're having open, honest conversations with our clients to say, look, hey, we might need to adjust the fee here, but because we've built such a good relationship with our client base, 9 out of 10 times they don't refuse any increases that we put in front of them because they know how much value that they're already getting from us. So yeah, it's an evolving piece. Pricing is a very evolving piece, and
obviously it depends on the business as well. But do you have advice for business owners about like how to increase their prices? Like, what would you say, and or how to kind of? I think that we all get, often I see freelancers get stuck in this not putting their prices up for ages and ages and ages, and then realizing they need to put it up by loads. And I guess the advice I tend to give people is little and often is better. It tends to be. I mean, is that something you tend to do for your own businesses? Is that advice you tend to give?
Yeah, so we review our prices. We try and review our prices quarterly if we can. We don't tend to do a price increase until after maybe about 9 or 12 months. But we're always reviewing it just to make sure, is there anything that we maybe need to have a bit more of a private conversation with the client and just say, this is what we think we need to do here. How do you feel about that? Or is there anything that we could potentially do differently? Do you really necessarily require that service just now, or is it just something that you think that you needed at the beginning? So it's a difficult piece, and with clients, you want to obviously be running your profit and loss and see where you're sitting at, figuring out is your margin being taken into consideration here, or have you even considered that at the beginning when you've made your pricing, because maybe you haven't thought about how much time you're actually spending on something, or how much costs are put into delivering that product or service. So you have to be looking at that constantly, I feel. And then inflation as well on top of that. You shouldn't feel guilty about inflating your own prices in alignment with inflation. That's just standard. We should all be doing that.
And if you're self-employed, taking into account sick pay, taking into account holiday pay. I think as a small business owner, when you start out, kind of taking into account your own time, and especially, if at first it seems you're so far off, because you're putting so much time into the business, but it's so important to keep going back to that, because time is such an important part of it, isn't it? It's not just the costs, it's actually the time and obviously paying yourself a salary. I was going to ask, I mean, we're talking about like getting an accountant, and I think that, one of the things about outsourcing in a business so you can scale is, getting other people to do the things that you don't do the best. So if you're a specialist branding consultant, then you kind of want to give everyone else the jobs that aren't the only thing that you can do. And I think that getting an accountant is almost always the first step in outsourcing. It, for most businesses, that's the first thing that people should be outsourcing probably. But have you got tips from sort of running your own business or what you've seen in other people's business about what people can do if they're feeling overwhelmed by, all of the kind of admin side of running a business? How do you deal with that yourself?
So I think going back to what I said earlier about, when it does feel overwhelming, is just take a step back and look at it differently of how can I actually make this fun? Because business is, you have to be professional and you have to be quite serious at times, but it doesn't always have to be like that. And if you can gamify it for yourself and have that kind of reward mechanism for doing things, you'll feel a lot more motivated in doing these tasks that maybe your accountant's asking for you. So I definitely recommend that. And also having community. Reach out to people that are maybe on a similar journey to yourself. Again, go back to that collaboration over competition piece. I don't believe that everybody should be seen as your competitor. I just don't. If somebody's doing something that's similar to you, ask them questions, be curious, ask if you can learn from them, ask if you could help them with something and get exposure to the way that maybe they're doing something. Is it different to how you're doing it? And work with each other. That's what being in business is all about, is supporting one another.
I'm going to put
it's
this
good
up
that
from Emma
you.
Louise. She's put, I'm all about the AAT community. So yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it's really good. And obviously, accountants, we seem to get on quite well. 90% of other accountants we have a really good relationship with in the local area. And the ones that don't are the ones that don't speak to any other accountants at all. And we're always like, come on, we're all friends. There's enough businesses around
Yeah.
us. And I assume you've got some really good local relationships, maybe that you built from previous places you worked, or maybe from networking events. So if that's something you kind of touch on.
Yeah, so I'm a bit introverted. I come across really extroverted, but I'm really not. So when I go to these networking events, I'm very out there and I word vomit a lot. But I don't go into it thinking I'm going to win work from this. I go into it thinking, how can I help somebody else? Is there somebody that I know that I could potentially refer them to? And I think that's the difference, is that you have to go into the mindset of, how can I be of servitude?
Yeah, and just see if you can spot anything. Just build the relationships, and after maybe 6 months of going to these events, something might come up. But if it didn't, you still built the relationship, and maybe you needed their service. I find myself at networking events sometimes just speaking to other accountants, and I think if I bumped into you at a networking event, I'll probably just stand and talk to you for an hour because I find it really fun. But you do learn things from that as well.
Ideas.
Yeah, but it's motivational, isn't it, as well? And it's really, really good. So getting involved with them kind of things is great, even if you're at the level where you're not even ready to start your business. I think something I know now is that I would take myself to them events and get involved, meeting people like me, yourself, even Sophie, anyone like that, or I mean other accountants and things, and learning from them, because why not?
And you never know who you're going to meet, right? So you could
just leaving the office as well can be so powerful, can't it? Yeah. Like just that like train journey or something. And actually, I sometimes go to networking events or events like that are completely kind of different industries from me. And it's just funny, actually seeing that cross-industry stuff can spark ideas. I think you can too often try and follow, this is what all the other accountants are doing, so let's that's what my business needs to look like. And actually by doing that, you're not standing out at all if you're just going to kind of want to look like other accountants. And it's quite interesting, I think, to work out how other people in other industries are doing things. I also use it as an example of like in freelancing, maybe someone in a more creative role like a graphic designer or a copywriter might traditionally have kind of more problems having those money chats or chasing invoices and things like that. And actually we have freelance accountants in our communities as well, and you kind of think they're on it in terms of getting people set up on payments and things like that, so like regular payments and automated invoices and things like that. And then you kind of think, you almost as a copywriter got to think, well, why wouldn't I also do that for my business? Just because so I think it's really interesting to kind of not look at what everyone else that's doing the same thing as you is doing, but how can you learn from other people's businesses? And accountants are probably going to be pretty good at the getting paid side of things, so why wouldn't you base your business on how an accountant would get paid? Do you guys have how do you invoice people? Do you have like everything set up and it's kind of monthly automated invoices?
Yeah, so we use QuickBooks. That's our chosen provider. There's other providers out there.
Other providers are available.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm like the complete other side. I'm the rival side to that. So
what are you, free agent?
Zero.
Yeah, I do like Zero as well. I'm a cloud agnostic, so we dip our toes into all different softwares. I'm a bit of a geek. I love new software and getting my hands stuck into it. I just adore it. But yeah, we've got recurring invoices set up in QuickBooks, so it just gets sent out automatically. We've recently signed up for Adfin as well, so that will do our direct debit collections for us. So yeah, it's just realizing that there's a lot of tech out there, but it's working with the right person who knows how to operate it and can set it up for you and just make it as painless as possible. And that's really what we're here for now as your accountant. Is we've kind of went from traditional accounting to more of an advisory role, basically, isn't it? So I don't know if you agree with me there, Will, but
Yeah, totally. And the accounting tech industry is changing massively. So
yeah,
I got into accountancy in 2016, and I was in a junior role at the time where you literally type up paper bank statements all the way from the start. And nowadays, that's not really, I mean, it's still a thing, but if done correctly, you can just use software all the way from start
yeah,
to finish. But on the repeating invoices, we do that. But it took me probably 6 months to realize that. And in the first, I didn't have many invoices, but in the 6 months, I was manually typing every invoice and
yeah,
everything. And then zero account with the repeating invoice feature. And I was like, oh, this is a lifesaver. And now we're sending out, it's quite a lot now. For you, a lot of invoice going out each month.
yeah.
And if I had to type them, it would be a nightmare. So if a business owner didn't know that, you're talking hours saved just
Oh,
by
yeah.
one bit of advice you've given, as simple as that. So yeah,
Yeah.
really good things.
We had a client that we took over, and that's exactly what they used to do,
There you
and
go.
pay runs as well. And they were spending probably about 27 hours a month, and we've now made it an hour and a half.
It's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah, stuff like that. And that will cover your accountancy fee, I'd imagine, potentially. And then from there, that's like they've got you for life because you've saved them that per month. And it's all the extra bits you can do. Yeah, absolutely incredible.
Is this a good time to move on to talking about making tax digital,
Yes.
or
Oh, of
MTD,
course. Yeah.
as we call it in the industry? Okay, so this is my not understanding of it, but my understanding is that it's kind of been pushed back and pushed back. Is that right? And
Not anymore.
it is
Not
now
anymore.
happening.
Till
So
2026.
can you tell us what making tax digital is and what business owners should be doing now to prepare?
So making tax digital for income tax self-assessment, or ITSA as it's called, you'll hear us accountants say that quite a lot.
What's that? Sorry,
Income tax self-assessment, ITSA.
it's right.
ITSA.
I haven't
So
heard that
it's-
acronym,
Have you
unsurprisingly.
not?
No.
MTD ITSA. So
MTD,
it's
I'll throw that around at my accounting networking events.
It's a.
EBITDA,
yeah. So it's specifically aimed at sole traders and landlords. It's getting introduced in 2 phases. So phase 1 from April 2026 will be sole traders and landlords with income above 50,000, I believe. Will have to report their income and expenditure quarterly. Now, they don't have to pay over their, what they're due in tax quarterly, not yet, but that might change if they want to follow suit of what VAT does. Your payment will still get made on the 31st of January and your payment on account in July. But it means that it's mandatory for you to have it on accounting software because the quarterly reports have to be done through approved software.
Like a VAT return, isn't it? That's
like a VAT return.
very similar. Yeah.
The point is that it has to be done on software. So if you are a sole trader landlord who's listening to this today, please reach out to an accounting professional or research more on HMRC's website about this, because from April 2026 it will be coming into force. If you're a partnership, it doesn't affect you yet, but we're holding our breath because I'm pretty sure that will be coming as well.
And it'll be something for everyone, won't it? Because from April 27, it jumps to the 30k turnover drop, so it drops there, and that pretty much will cover most sole traders at that point.
Yeah. So
And then from there, I'll be surprised. Yeah, I think I want to say 28 is 20 grand. We haven't even looked that far ahead, but I think, and then it'd just be that it's a thing for everyone. So there's no harm in starting it. We're saying to people from now.
Yeah.
I assume you're giving similar kind of advice to get involved with some kind of accounting software, because you don't want to pick it up in April and be like, what do I do? Because that'd be
100%. There's a lot of software providers out there just now who are running beta testing, so you can subscribe to be a part of that, to be somebody who uses it first before it actually comes live. And I'd highly recommend looking into that, because you're better getting used to the functionality well in advance, so then when it does come into play, you already have an understanding of what is required then. And again, to emphasise the importance of reaching out to a professional to support you with that.
Is there a sense in the industry of how many people this still affects? Like, how many are you still expecting that in March 2026 there's going to be you're going to get this influx of people going, oh my god, I need software, I need your help? Like, do you think people have been making the switch, or is there do you think that it is going to happen really last minute?
I think if you agree, well, we're all trying our best at the moment in the accounting industry to bring awareness to what's going to happen and have the conversations with our clients now, just so then that way we can start to transition them early. But of course, it's like anything, not everybody's going to have, platforms where maybe they get that information from, and there will be people that are last minute, and it's just about supporting them.
It has to, and it will happen, and especially as it becomes for more people. There'll be different generations. I mean, we have older clients, maybe 70 upwards, where technology they hate, and they're even VAT registered, and they just give us a paper receipts. There is one client of ours which will now fall under MTD for that as well, which is fine because we're doing their VAT anyway. But what we're finding, it's interesting to speak to another accountant on this in this context. We're seeing that not many sole traders, I mean, now they are turning over 50K. They're finding if they're at that point, should they consider a limited company and that kind of step? So it becomes, is there a conversation to be had there? Because obviously the costs for a sole trader are just going to rise with MTD.
Oh, yeah. But that's where the kind of tax planning piece comes into it, isn't it?
Amazing.
And having that proactive conversation of sitting down with them and figuring out, is it more tax beneficial for you to incorporate into a limited company? I've actually heard that there's sadly a lot of sole traders that are going back to employment as well due to this, which is really sad. So yeah, get in touch with your accountant and have that conversation surrounding the advantages and disadvantages for you incorporating, if that's something that you feel might be of benefit to you.
Yeah,
Emma Louise has put in the chat. Also, MTD isn't taught. Us newly qualified bookkeepers and accountants are left out on a limb. So it's an interesting point of view. This always happens. I'm always like, it's 10 past, and then it's like, I was like, oh, it's like 5:02. It's not even, it's 3 minutes to. We've got like time for one more question. So, gosh, probably got about 20 questions more that I was going to ask you. Let's finish on an extra piece of financial advice that you'd give to every small business owner that's listening today that maybe hopefully that we haven't covered yet.
Ooh. Well, obviously
we've covered a lot, to be fair.
Yeah.
Or startup advice.
Well, something a little bit maybe different.
Go on, I'm intrigued.
Invest in yourself. I don't think there's many people that are saying that to clients, and it's really important because the investments that you make, you want to ensure that obviously there's going to be a cost associated with it, so you need to make sure that the benefit outweighs the cost. But the majority of the time when you're investing in yourself, you're always going to see a return on your investment. So like working with an accountant, you're going to see a return on your investment there because they're dealing with all the compliancy piece for you. If you're working with somebody who's a bit more, proactive than reactive, we'll be letting you know things that you could potentially be doing differently throughout the year. Timing of capital expenditure, for example, is a big one. So yeah, that investment piece into yourself, I think is really important.
That's a really good one. Thank you. And the last question I'm going to ask you is, where can people find you online, and where can people connect with you? Where can people find NoExspense? And yeah, I'm going to drop your LinkedIn into the chat, but yeah, let us know. Actually,
so yeah, I'm on most social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and YouTube, a little bit of YouTube, but I'm not on TikTok, not yet.
Is there a plan in place?
I don't know. My partner and my life partner, he's our marketing strategist, so I'll need to figure out from him if that's something that he's wanting.
Maybe when the academy comes, be TikTok for the academy.
Yeah.
It's such a big thing nowadays, though, isn't it? TikTok. We struggle. I don't like being on video, like as in filming videos in front of myself and actually putting them out. But if you do, apparently it is really, really good. I see some accountants do really well from it. But
yeah, 100%. I just feel I'm too old.
No, it's about standing out, isn't it? Like, yeah, it's kind of interesting. I think that kind of go, oh, no accountants are on TikTok, and then when those first accountants do get on TikTok, they stand out. So we'll watch this space for the TikTok channel then.
Never say never.
Emma Louise is connected with you already. She's get on TikTok, she says. Thank you so much to everyone that's come along today. Thank you for keeping the chat alive. And thank you so much to my co-host, Will Blower, and of course to our amazing guest, the Queen, Julie Spence. Thank you everyone. And there'll be key takeaways, and the recording will be coming out And we'll see you. We're having a break in August, but we'll be back in September with the next webinar. Bye.
Bye.